The Scott Jennings Show is proudly sponsored by Lear Capital. Since 1997, Lear has helped Americans protect their retirement accounts and savings with physical gold and silver. With thousands of five-star reviews and $3 billion in transactions, Lear is who I trust to help me buy gold and silver. Visit LearScott.com.
The voice of free speech. The truth delivered. Common sense for the American people. Welcome to the Scott Jennings Show.
The United States Senate has voted down limits on Trump's war powers. We'll bring you that information and the latest on the war in Iran. Democrats are managing the fallout from having nominated James Talarico in Texas. You won't believe some of his past statements. We have them here. And the chairman of House Oversight joins live to talk about his committee's investigation into the Minnesota fraud scandal. Breathtaking details. It is Thursday, March the 5th. This is Common Sense for the American people. I'm Scott Jennings, and today we are reporting live from Kansas City, Kansas. I want to start by thanking the National Pork Producers Council for inviting me to address the National Pork Industry Forum this morning. Great group of patriotic Americans. I told them that this country runs on three things: freedom, common sense, and bacon. And I got a standing ovation for it. I also want to thank my friends here at KCMO Radio in Kansas City for hosting the show today. Great facility and studio, and I'm very grateful for the hospitality. And a quick note before I give you the news today. The Salem News Channel is continuing to grow. Starting this week, SNC, as we call it, is available now on Amazon Prime Video. So you can find the Salem News Channel under News via the live TV option. For more ways to watch, go to snc.tv and click on Ways to Watch. Now, we're on the radio on over 300 stations coast to coast. We are in podcast form on Apple and Spotify. We're on snc.tv, and I stream this show every day on my own social media. So thank you all for being part of Common Sense for the American people. Now we do the news. And last night, the United States Senate rejected a resolution that would have blocked President Trump from further striking Iran. One Democrat, Fetterman of Pennsylvania, voted with the Republicans to stop this resolution. And one Republican, Rand Paul of Kentucky, voted with the Democrats to try to stop Trump. The resolution failed, 47 to 53. Now, Mitch McConnell of Kentucky made a passionate case for the president's constitutional authority to order the strikes. Here's Mitch in Cut 12.
This weekend's events are not the beginning of a war, but an attempt to end one that spanned nearly half a century. And as I've explained so many times over the years, the powers of the president for the use of military force with or without prior congressional approval are actually well established. Every single president during my time in the Senate has invoked these inherent authorities, from President Reagan's strikes on Libya to President Biden's strikes on the Houthis. President Trump's use of force to end Iran's war of terror is squarely within his inherent authorities as Commander-in-Chief.
Now, regarding these war powers, it seems the U.S. House will hold a similar vote today. That is also expected to fail. So that means Operation Epic Fury continues, and the Allied attacks may soon include Great Britain. After initially opposing the American-Israeli action, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has signaled today that the UK may soon join in the military campaign. Let's listen to Cut 13.
The long-standing British position is that the best way forward for the regime and the world is a negotiated settlement with Iran where they give up their nuclear ambitions. Now, that's why I took the decision that the UK would not join the initial strikes on Iran by the US and Israel. Now, that decision was deliberate. It was in the national interest, and I stand by it. But when Iran started attacking countries around the Gulf and the wider region, the situation changed. Iran has now fired drones and missiles at 10 countries that did not attack them. These are allies of the UK, where we have hundreds of thousands of British people, as well as British military personnel. Our number one priority is protecting our people.
That's Keir Starmer. He's the British Prime Minister. Better late than never, I suppose. And this just into the Scott Jennings Show. The news outlet Axios is reporting that President Trump says he must be involved in picking Iran's next leader, just the way he was in Venezuela. We'll have more war coverage throughout the show. Political news. Democrats are reeling from the fallout from the Tuesday night primary that saw James Talarico defeat Jasmine Crockett for their party's nomination for the United States Senate down in Texas. A number of past statements made by Talarico have come to light on social media, including his views on gender. Take a listen to Talarico in a state legislative hearing, telling his colleagues that he believes there are six genders. Cut number 8, please.
I want us all to be aware of is that modern science obviously recognizes that there are many more than 2 biological sexes. In fact, there are 6, which honestly, Representative Hefner surprised me too. With you now. Surprised me too, because I am not well versed in this issue area. I'm not a scientist. I'm a politician, a lot worse than a scientist.
Not sure that's going to fly in Texas, but your humble reporter wanted to know more, so I asked the Talarico campaign this morning some questions about this. They have not responded, but I will share with you, our listeners, my questions. Number 1, can you tell me the names of the 6 genders, and can you tell me which of the 6 Mr. Talarico believes himself to be? Do you have a breakdown of the U.S. population divided by the 6 genders? And finally, does Mr. Talarico have a view on how the individual genders should be treated as it relates to sports? In other words, should gender number 3 be permitted to play against gender number 6, for example? I felt it fair to ask Mr. Talarico's campaign for a response. It's an important race. I'll let you know if they answer my questions. Now, on the Republican side, President Trump has said he will make an endorsement in that Texas Senate race, perhaps this week, as a runoff looms between the incumbent John Cornyn and the challenger Ken Paxton, who is the state attorney general. Most insiders believe that Cornyn is most likely to get the president's endorsement, although Paxton has said he may not drop out even if that happens. So we're going to keep an eye on this. We also have Congresswoman Beth Van Dyne from Texas coming on the show today. We'll get her views on all of this. Even more political news. Montana Senator Steve Daines surprised Washington late last night by abruptly announcing his retirement. Mr. Daines is well-liked in the Senate Republican Conference. He and President Trump have now aligned behind a man named Kurt Almey, who is the U.S. attorney to replace Daines in the Senate. There is an important policy conference going on in South Florida today. The name of the conference is the America's Counter Cartel Conference. War Secretary Pete Hegseth is there, as is White House advisor Stephen Miller. Mr. Miller's comments were of note to me. Let's listen to cut 14.
There's been a paradigm shift under President Trump in the Western Hemisphere in the last 14 months. Some of that was touched on by the earlier speakers, but just to restate it, we are not going to cede an inch of territory in this hemisphere to our enemies or our adversaries. Our national security, our homeland security, the safety and well-being of our people begins at home, begins in our neighborhood, begins in our home region. And for too long, we have allowed foreign enemies, foreign adversaries, and enemy terrorist organizations to control territory and spaces in this hemisphere where they can project power, project threats, and directly threaten the lives of your citizens and our citizens. And so under the leadership of President Trump, we are using hard power, military power, lethal force to protect and defend the American homeland.
As White House senior advisor Stephen Miller speaking this morning. down at Trump Doral in South Florida. Let's get some news about aches and pains, shall we? I'll share with you a listener story from Rod in Texas. Rod tells me, I'm 64 years old. I used to build houses on the side, and years of hard physical work left me with excruciating back pain that became unbearable. I finally gave Relief Factor a try. Within 4 days, most of the pain subsided. Over the next few weeks, it continued to improve. Rod's words were simple, and I quote, "Being pain-free is indescribable." Now, we have been using Relief Factor in the Jennings household. We've seen immediate impacts. My father, no spring chicken, is hopping around like one, however, and he believes it's because of Relief Factor. If pain has been holding you back, you can try Relief Factor's 3-week quick start and see how it works for you. Call 1-800-4RELIEF or go to relieffactor.com. Ask yourself, how will it feel to be out of pain? Find out with Relief Factor. When we come back, we'll analyze the Iran war through this lens. What does it have to do with China? South Dakota Congressman Dusty Johnson is here to discuss. We'll talk about it next on The Scott Jennings Show.
Hey, it's Scott. Listen, when I prep for my CNN debates, I need to know exactly where the national conversation is headed. And it turns out it's helpful to know that in your everyday life as well. And that's why I tried out Free Spoke. Now, it's my go-to place for search and for news. When you use Free Spoke, it's a search platform that gives you the full story. You get information from the left, you get it from the right, you get non-mainstream, you get independent journalists, you get podcast insights. What you get from Free Spoke is the full story all in one place. And here's the thing, when you search on Free Spoke, you know they are not going to sell your data. It's quite something, actually. It's fast, it's private, it's unbiased. Free Spoke helps me research topics and make sure that I understand the full picture. You can have this tool as well. Just go to freespoke.com/Jennings to download their app for free. And as an exclusive for my listeners, use promo code Jennings after you download it and get 35% off the premium version. You go ad-free and you unlock deeper elite tools to have control over your information. So don't rely on incomplete information. Take control of your own information environment. See every perspective so you can think for yourself, just like I do before every debate.
Conversations and stories you simply won't hear from the mainstream media. It's The Scott Jennings Show.
And we do have breaking news here on The Scott Jennings Show. This just in, the entire House Republican leadership is addressing an internal situation. There's a congressman named Tony Gonzalez from Texas who you might have heard has been mired in a personal scandal. It has been found that he had a sexual relationship with a subordinate from his office, and that staffer later committed suicide. There's been an ethics committee investigation launched into this situation. On primary night in Texas, Congressman Gonzalez was forced into a runoff with a challenger, and it's not been clear what he was going to do. Well, today, the House Republican leadership has asked Tony Gonzalez of Texas to withdraw from his race for re-election, and they have encouraged him to address these serious allegations directly with his constituents and his colleagues. So that is the breaking House Republican news. Here to discuss that and the war in Iran is South Dakota Congressman Dusty Johnson. Congressman, thanks for joining us today. I know we're scheduled to discuss Iran and the nexus with China, but let's start with the political breaking news. You see what the House Republican leaders have asked Mr. Gonzalez to do. What's your comment?
Well, I think House Republican leadership is right. I mean, first they said Tony's got to come clean. He started that process yesterday. I like the fact that he admitted he'd done wrong. I mean, so often these politicians try to cover things up and cover things up and cover things up. Step one is acknowledging you made a mistake. Step two is asking for forgiveness. He said that he's asked both his Lord and his wife to forgive him. They're starting that really difficult process. But the reality is he did violate the rules of the House. And that is not something that House leadership nor House members can ignore.
Yeah, the rules of the House, we should add, are that it's an ethics violation for a member to have a relationship of this nature with a staff member. So that is the specific violation. We'll see what Congressman Gonzalez does. Congressman Johnson, let's talk about the war in Iran, specifically the nexus with China. China has spent years trying to build up Iran as a pillar for Chinese influence in the region. And now, with the United States and Israel striking, China's really nowhere to be found. China also got a lot of its oil from Iran. What do you make of this connection between Iran and China, and maybe also between what President Trump did with Maduro in Venezuela, because China had influence over him as well?
Yeah, there is a very real connection. I don't want to overstate it, Scott. I mean, Iran and China are work friends. They're not personal friends, right? These are not close allies, but they have a lot of business connections. And in fact, 88% of Iran's oil goes to China. China has a voracious appetite for this oil. They don't get more oil anywhere else from Iran other than from Saudi Arabia. And so this is a big problem for China. When they have an Iran that they can't count on to provide energy, that is risks strangling their economy a little bit. Also, they've been work friends insofar as China has really helped Iran behind the scenes develop a stronger missile program, and that missile program has been obliterated, obviously, by the Israeli and United States Air Forces.
So you're looking at Operation Epic Fury after a few days. It seems the military operations are a ringing success. It sounds like the House is going to vote on a war powers resolution today. One was defeated in the Senate last night. What's your expectation for today's vote on the House floor?
It will be defeated. It's going to be close because everything in the House is close these days. I think, listen, a broad cross-section of Republicans in the House, like myself, are deeply skeptical of American involvement in other countries, particularly when we start talking about boots on the ground. But in general, there's pretty strong support for targeted airstrikes that have a specific targeted mission. It's going to be, I got a really, really good briefing, as did other members, both Democrats and Republicans, the other day. I thought it was the single most consequential classified briefing I have ever received in Congress. But the administration is going to need to continue to do that. I mean, on a weekly basis, they're going to need to be consulting Congress and making real progress toward those aims. There is zero appetite for aimless, lingering conflict.
That's Congressman Dusty Johnson of South Dakota, that voice you're hearing on the Scott Jennings Show today, one of the, I think, most studious members of the U.S. House Republican Conference, but I should add, running for governor of South Dakota, and I suspect he's going to have great success in that endeavor, and he'll, I have no doubt, become one of the best governors in the country. Dusty, thanks for joining us on the show today. And when we come back from this commercial break, another member of the House is going to join us. This one is the Oversight Committee Chairman, Jamie Comer. There was a huge hearing on the Somali Minneapolis, Minnesota fraud on Capitol Hill. Walz and Ellison were both drug into that. Lots of blockbuster details. You don't want to miss it. Common Sense for the American People is here. It's Scott Jennings. Stay with us on Salem. Hey, it's Scott Jennings. I have a message about crime. It's skyrocketing, and you may already own a firearm. However, before you face the financial, legal, and emotional weight of pulling the trigger, there's a smarter option. It's called Byrna. That's B-Y-R-N-A. Let me tell you about it. Byrna makes less lethal launchers that fire tear gas and kinetic rounds designed to stop an attacker for up to 40 minutes. That gives you time to escape and call for help without deadly consequences. Their best-selling compact launcher is sleek, slim, and incredibly powerful. It's about the size of a smartphone. It's ideal for concealed carry, comfortable, discreet, and confidence building. I got to tell you, I've used it, I've shot it. You would really, really be amazed at what this Byrna launcher can do. It fires at 400 feet per second with serious stopping power, enough to shut down a threat fast, and without the legal and moral complexity of lethal force. Byrna is proudly American. Over 80% of the components are U.S. sourced. Every launcher is hand-assembled in Fort Wayne, Indiana. With over 750,000 of these things sold worldwide, Byrna is best in class. And it's legal in all 50 states. No background checks. It comes straight to your door. Learn more about this at Byrna.com. That's BYRNA.com.
Ready for some common sense and a little Kentucky windage? Here's Scott Jennings.
Well, it's going to be one of those days. Breaking news all over the place here on Thursday, March the 5th. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that President Trump is preparing to fire Kristi Noem, who is the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. There have been no official announcements from the White House. The president himself has not said anything, but there are sources telling numerous media outlets that the president was not happy with some parts of Secretary Noem's testimony up on Capitol Hill this week. Again, the breaking news, the Wall Street Journal says the president is preparing to fire Noem. Other sources are saying that he's merely weighing it and talking to people about it. So we'll keep an eye on this for the rest of the afternoon, but that is the breaking news here on the Scott Jennings Show. Now, there's been a lot of action on Capitol Hill this week, a lot of hearings, a lot of testimonies, a lot of depositions. And one of the most important happened in the House Oversight Committee yesterday. And the buffoons from Minnesota were at the table. I'd like to play a clip of everyone's favorite buffoon, the governor, Tim Walz. Let's listen to cut number 7.
But he was licensed in your state under your law that you signed about a year and a half ago. Every day we give licenses and people speed. So we ticket them and try and stop that. What I'm telling you is I don't understand the connection between he's here illegally, he can't read, and he got a license under your provisions, and he's driving all across the country, imperiling everybody else.
Now, that was the sound of Governor Tim Walz fighting with a member of the committee there and comparing an illegal immigrant with a commercial driver's license driving down the wrong side of the road to someone who gets a simple speeding ticket. It was asinine. So I've invited on the best person to discuss this, my friend from Kentucky, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee, who has been doggedly tracking down the details of all of this fraud, all of this crap going on in Minnesota under Governor Tim Walz. Jamie Comer from Kentucky's 1st Congressional District is here. Congressman, welcome back to the Scott Jennings Show.
Thanks for having me, Scott.
So you all have issued a report, and for the last 3 months, you've been interviewing whistleblowers in Minnesota. You've been having them come by. You've been speaking to some of them publicly, some of them privately. You've taken a number of depositions. You had Walz and the Attorney General, Keith Ellison, at the table yesterday. Tell us, what are the top-line findings of the House Oversight Committee's investigation?
Yesterday was our hearing. The hearing was a culmination of at least 3 months worth of hard work by the oversight staff. We identified the whistleblowers in Minnesota. Remember, before that video surfaced of the Leering Center and all the different Somali frauds in Minnesota, there were some state employees that tweeted out that Governor Walz knew about the fraud, yet he did nothing about it. That's where the Minnesota fraud started with respect to the national media, the national attention focusing on Minnesota. It started with some whistleblowers, and these whistleblowers were career state employees, almost all registered Democrats in Minnesota, who had just had all they could take of Governor Walz and Attorney General Ellison allowing this fraud to continue. So we brought every one of them in. We talked to several of them, 30 as a matter of fact. We sat down and did transcribed interviews with 9. This is where they go on record. If they lie to Congress, that's a felony and they can be charged with perjury. So they knew they had to tell the truth. And several of them indicated that they had been warning Governor Walz and Attorney General Ellison for years about this fraud, and yet they did nothing about it. And in some cases, Governor Walz retaliated against the whistleblowers for having the audacity to blow the whistle on the fraud.
Tell us about the fraud. Give us an idea. I know there were a lot of schemes. There were a lot of illegal activities taking place. In your mind, give us some of the major highlights here of just how the taxpayers were being fleeced in these fraud schemes in Minnesota.
It was in all the social programs. So Medicaid is free health care. That is a social program. 85% of the Somali Americans in Minnesota are on Medicaid, which means they get free health care. So the people that work hard and pay a significant percentage of their salary to try to pay for health insurance, these people were getting it free. Housing, the adult daycares, food programs, all of these social programs in Minnesota, there were these Somali groups that were created to do nothing other than defraud the government of, hundreds of thousands here, tens of thousands there. And over time, this accumulated to millions and millions and even billions of dollars in fraud. There are people that receive welfare benefits that are ineligible. If you're here illegally, you're ineligible. I will have to add, most of the Somali that we've identified in fraud, they are legal citizens now. They became legal citizens the right way, and we're not criticizing how they became citizens, but they participated in these schemes. And the Governor Walz, the Attorney General Ellison, both knew about these schemes, but they didn't want to do anything because the Somali voting bloc in Minnesota is the key to Democrats winning Minnesota. It's the key to Democrats winning the Senate races and the presidential race. So they didn't want to do anything to offend that massive voting bloc in Minnesota, and that's why they allowed this fraud to continue.
So here's where Governor Walz and Attorney General Ellison come in. As you mentioned, you've got all this fraud going on, billions of dollars in fraud, and still counting, it seems like. And you have actual honorable state employees, many Democrats, coming forward and saying, hey, there's fraud going on here. And it's your belief, based on your investigation, that the governor of Minnesota, a Democrat, Tim Walz, either A, looked the other way, or B, in some cases, punished these whistleblowers?
Absolutely. And we printed this in a very detailed report. It's on the House Oversight Committee website. You can read that report. Committee hearings seldom accomplish much, but this hearing was a culmination of a lot of work behind the scenes. That's why we do depositions. We do our best work in what the media loves to say behind closed doors, where we depose people. Obviously, we publish the transcripts and the videos of the depositions. But the purpose of our investigation was to determine whether or not Governor Walz and Attorney General Ellison knew about the fraud. And we can conclude with 100% confidence, yes, they did.
So I have to ask, is it criminal for them to have known about this and done nothing? And if so, will you be referring these materials to the Department of Justice?
Well, we're sharing the materials with the Department of Justice. Pam Bondi has said in numerous interviews that she's done on different publications that the Department of Justice is on the ground and they're investigating the individual fraudsters, the people who were scheming, the people that started the Leering Center and all the stuff, the videos that we've seen. So according to Pam Bondi, the Department of Justice is on the ground in Minnesota. We shared this. We don't want to do anything to disrupt their ongoing investigation, but we can do criminal referrals if she wants. We believe that they violated several laws, including the whistleblower protection laws. And we're going to wait and see what the Attorney General says. Again, we're hoping that we apprehend and prosecute a lot of people in Minnesota, because not only were the top two politicians aware of it, but there were actual people who carried on this fraud, who pocketed tens of millions of dollars. These are the ones that I want to see in handcuffs as well. I think, just the sheer investigation itself ended Tim Walz's political career. That's a form of accountability, but hopefully we'll leave it up to the Attorney General to see if she wants to try to prosecute them. But I think you've got two angles for any type of prosecution: the willful neglect to do anything about the fraud, and the retaliation against the credible whistleblowers.
One last question on this, Congressman Comer. You mentioned that many of the Somalis that are involved in this are naturalized American citizens. Do you believe if someone comes here and becomes a naturalized citizen and then commits fraud, breaks our laws, that we should denaturalize and deport them?
Well, that would be fine with me. I don't know how that would hold up in the courts, but look, you've got the biggest argument that people made for years was granting mass amnesty and allowing an open border was we needed the workers. And look, there's a shortage of workers in America, especially blue collar workers. I'm a farmer by trade. You know that, Scott. We have a massive amount of migrant workers. We have to. because there are no white people or black people, for that matter, that want to do those jobs. They're all migrant workers that work in these agriculture industries. But you've got the Somalis that have come over here, and even the legal citizens. 81% of the Somalis in Minnesota are on full welfare. That means they get food stamps, they get free health care, they get housing, they get transportation, they get adult daycare, they get child daycare. They get all of these welfare benefits, and yet they're not working. So, again, I think that what we're seeing in Minnesota is really changing everybody's attitude on the whole immigration debate as a whole.
That's Congressman Jamie Comer of Kentucky. He's chairman of the House Oversight Committee. Congressman, you probably heard me report at the top of this segment that there is some amount of breaking news today. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that President Trump may be preparing to fire Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. She's been up on Capitol Hill testifying this week. Any reaction to that? And did you? Oh, now we do see breaking news. She's out. So I believe I'm being told that the Homeland Security Secretary, and apparently, we're learning this together, Congressman, Senator MarkWayne Mullin of Oklahoma is going to replace Kristi Noem as Homeland Security Secretary. This is literally just happening right now. So it's hitting me at the same time it's hitting you. March 31st apparently will be the date of the transition. Congressman Comer, I've got about 30 seconds. How does this news strike you?
Well, the interesting thing is MarkWayne and Kristi Noem are very close friends. They used to work out together in the gym every morning. I've known Kristi for a long time, ever since I've been in Congress. It's I'll say this: I support the president's decision. I think MarkWayne will do a tremendous job in that position if that's what he wants to do, and hopefully we can get some stability moving forward. Because if you look at all the great things President Trump's accomplished, securing the border and making our country safe internally, the homeland, that's his greatest accomplishment. So that's what the focus of Homeland Security needs to be about: the president's accomplishments, not about whether the secretary spent too much money or her personal life or anything like that.
That's Congressman Jamie Comer of Kentucky. Congressman, thanks for joining us, and thanks for the update on tracking down the Minneapolis, Minnesota fraud. The breaking news out of the Oversight Committee is that the committee has found that Governor Tim Walz in Minnesota and Attorney General Keith Ellison not only knew about the fraud, but they looked the other way, and in many cases, they punished whistleblowers. And the breaking news of this hour, and I am now just seeing the president's statement. It is official. MarkWayne Mullin, senator from Oklahoma, is going to replace Kristi Noem as the DHS secretary. This is official. The president of the United States has just announced it. MarkWayne Mullin replacing Kristi Noem at Homeland Security effective March 31st, 2026. You're listening to Common Sense for the American People. I'm Scott Jennings. This is Salem. We have a lot of breaking news today. We're staying on top of it. Stay with us for more right after this.
Gold and silver recently soared to record highs and then pulled back. So are precious metals still a good buy? Many Wall Street experts predict higher prices ahead. Why? Well, because we still have trillions in national debt, a declining dollar, and inflation that keeps shrinking our savings. Even with corrections along the way, gold remains a historical hedge for wealth protection. That's why Morgan Stanley's chief investment officer ditched the 60-40 stocks and bonds portfolio and is recommending up to 20% in precious metals. They're getting educated, and you should too. Call Lear Capital at 1-800-880-2424 for your free gold investment kit and learn how you could qualify for up to $20,000 in bonus gold. Lear Capital has over $3 billion in transactions and thousands of five-star reviews. Call 1-800-880-2424, 1-800-880-2424, or visit LearScott.com.
Now, for America's favorite pundit, it's Scott Jennings.
Goodness gracious, the breaking news is popping all over right now. I'm going to tell you all about it with Beth Van Dyne, Congresswoman from Texas, in just a moment. But first, I do want to put in a word for our friends at the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, because we're watching Operation Epic Fury intensify. We're all bracing for the news that comes next every hour. And in the Holy Land, red alert sirens are still filling the air. And these sirens give you but 15 seconds to reach the nearest bomb shelter. Believe me, it is a serious situation for the folks in Israel. And it's at times like these that the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, this is where they swing into action. They're on the ground, large-scale distributions of life-saving food, first aid, and emergency essentials. They take care of Israel's most vulnerable at these moments where there is just emergencies all over the place. The sick, the elderly, children, and families, they depend on the fellowship, and the people in the Holy Land depend on us for our prayerful support. So what I'm asking you to do is this: join Christians and Jews around the world in praying for the protection of Israel, her people, and the brave American and Israeli troops putting their lives on the line in this fight for freedom. Stand with Israel in prayer today and support them. Go to supportifcj.org. That's supportifcj.org. It's common sense for the American people. I'm Scott Jennings on Salem. As I mentioned, and if you've been listening, you know we have breaking news up and down the board. Let's start here. Just moments ago, the President of the United States has announced he is replacing Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem with Senator MarkWayne Mullin of Oklahoma. This will be effective March 31st. To discuss this and other news items, my friend, Congresswoman Beth Van Dyne of Texas is here. Beth, thanks for coming on. And I know you're just learning this news about Secretary Noem. Yeah. What is your reaction to this?
Look, I think, unfortunately, when the story starts becoming about the person and not about the work, you're facing some uphill battles. I've known Kristi. I think she's done a great job. I was actually surprised. I thought it was going to be Tom Homan when I started hearing that there may be a replacement, because I've known Tom for years, and I think he does some fantastic work. But I also know that he already has a direct line with the president. I've also known MarkWayne Mullin for years. I think MarkWayne is an amazing senator. He was a great House of Representatives colleague, and he's right up in Oklahoma. So I look forward to, working with him. We'll see if that's actually confirmed, or if that's right now just kind of rumor. I know that was just let out there in the ethos.
It is. I can tell you that it is confirmed. The president has issued a statement on Truth Social, so that's as confirmed as we can make it here on the Scott Jennings Show. Let's talk Texas politics, because there's other breaking news there. There's a lot of reports that the president may make an endorsement in the Texas Republican Senate primary. It is a runoff now between John Cornyn, the incumbent, and the Attorney General Ken Paxton. Should the president get involved here and endorse someone? He's also said that if he does endorse someone, he expects the other person to drop out. What's your view?
I really wish, if he was going to get involved, I really wish it would have been in the primary. I think that might have prevented some third parties from getting into the primary, which would have avoided a runoff to begin with. The president is welcome to do what he wants to do. His endorsed candidates did very well across the state of Texas. So I think a Trump endorsement is going to go a long way. A lot of people look at that and they will support the candidate who Trump supports. But I really wish we could stop these really nasty Republican on Republican primaries, and especially avoid these really costly runoffs, because we're going to see so much money being spent in these runoffs that just unnecessarily. It's not Republicans that are going to be fighting each other. It's going to be Republicans fighting Democrats, and the Democrats right now, there's a lot of enthusiasm when you look at the primary numbers that went in. They are outpacing Republicans. There's a lot of enthusiasm on that ticket, and I just want to make sure that whoever goes into the general election is not a bloody pulp, because we had a nasty primary.
Beth, I've got about 20 seconds for this. The House Republican leadership is calling on one of your Texas colleagues, Congressman Tony Gonzalez, to abandon his reelection campaign. He's in a runoff. He's had ethics allegations because of a relationship that he had with a staffer, which is a violation of the House ethics rules. It's kind of a terrible situation. The staffer committed suicide sometime after that. Do you support the House Republican leaders and their call for Gonzalez to abandon his reelection campaign?
Look, I wanted to give Tony the benefit of the doubt. I came in with him, but then watching his interview yesterday, where he basically confirmed that he did just that, I think it is a distraction now, and that we need to make sure that we've got the best candidate running in. I don't want to be having to listen to problems with his personal life. So yeah, I do support leadership's decision.
That's Congresswoman Beth Van Dyne of Texas, one of the greatest members of the House Republican Conference. My friend Beth, thank you for being here, and thank you for being flexible and rolling with all of our breaking news coverage. We'll have you back soon. It's hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 coming up. Scott's on Salem. Stay with us for all the latest.
If the leftists haven't had enough yet, there's more. This is the Scott Jennings Show.
Okay, it is Thursday, March the 5th. It's common sense for the American people. Scott Jennings here. We have a huge amount of breaking news. So let's do a quick check of the headlines. In just the last few minutes, the President of the United States has announced that he is replacing Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem with Senator MarkWayne Mullin of Oklahoma. Noem will end her tenure at DHS on March 31st. Apparently, the president was not happy with Kristi Noem for a variety of reasons, including some testimony she gave on Capitol Hill. But this is official. We have an official presidential statement here. So Kristi Noem is out. MarkWayne Mullin, friend of the show, is in DHS as of March 31st. The House Republican leadership in Washington has asked Congressman Tony Gonzalez, a Republican, to abandon his reelection campaign. This just into the show. Gonzalez had an affair with a staffer in his office. That lady later committed suicide. There's been a House Ethics Committee investigation. Gonzalez had a primary on Tuesday night in Texas. He was put into a runoff with a challenger. The House Republican leadership is asking Gonzalez to withdraw. At this moment, Gonzalez has not said what he is going to do, but that is now hanging out there. And following up on a story from Northern Virginia that we brought you earlier this week, there are bombshell new emails revealing that the Fairfax County, Virginia police repeatedly warned the far-left Commonwealth's attorney up there, Steve Descano, at least 3 times about the dangerous illegal alien Abdul Jallo, the Sierra Leone national with over 30 prior arrests, who stabbed the 41-year-old mother to death at the bus stop. The police warned the Commonwealth's attorney, urging him not to release the illegal alien because of his violent history. Let's listen to a little bit of this in cut number 4.
So a far-left DA facing backlash over the fatal stabbing of a 41-year-old mom at a bus stop. As internal emails reveal, he was warned about the illegal migrant suspect, a violent offender with more than 30 prior arrests, but still released him before the crime. Back in November, police emailed, quote, "Mr. Jallo is one of the repeat and violent offenders we discuss. I wanted to get your background on why he's out so soon. Unfortunately, based on the numerous dealings with him, it is not a question of if, but rather when he will maliciously wound or worse again."
Jallo had entered the United States illegally in 2012. He has a long rap sheet, including charges for rape, malicious wounding, which are stabbings, assault, drug possession, identity theft, trespassing, larceny, firing a weapon, contributing to the delinquency of a minor, and more. Often the charges were dropped again and again by Descano's office, and they returned him back into the community. And now Virginia Democrats, including the governor, are saying they will not honor ICE detainers to have him deported. It is a terrible, violent, awful situation going on in Northern Virginia. We're going to stay on top of that story. In other news, this summer, we will see events all across the country to celebrate America's 250th anniversary. One of the organizations that will be part of the America 250 celebration is called the Hall of Giants, and the Hall of Giants will debut on the National Mall this summer. A founding member of the Freedom 250 Network, the Hall of Giants has a 5,200 square foot traveling pavilion that includes immersive exhibits on America's entrepreneurs from the founding of our country to present day, the people who built America. Here to discuss is Hall of Giants founder and CEO John Tillman. Mr. Tillman, welcome to the Scott Jennings Show.
Great to be on with you, Scott. Thanks for having me, and thanks for sharing that story.
Yeah, it's a great story, and I want to ask you, Why are you doing this? What gave you the idea to build this Hall of Giants and celebrate America's long history of entrepreneurship?
Well, I've been an entrepreneur almost my entire adult life. I built a number of businesses, both in the for-profit and not-for-profit space. And as is always the case, you've heard the phrase creative destruction. I've experienced some creative destruction in my business life, and I've had a lot of great success. And I love entrepreneurs, my fellow entrepreneurs that I've met across the course of my life, from a bowling alley owner to tech bros and finance bros, if you will, to use that term. And I really think that America has lost sight of what the entrepreneurial role is in this country. They start out with a singular purpose to start a business. They put some of their own capital in and maybe some investors' capital, and they start out with that singular purpose to do what? Serve other people well. And by solving problems mostly and giving people what they want and need. If you think about your viewers and listeners, every single thing in our physical life other than our bodies exists because an entrepreneur at some point started a business to serve other people well. It's the greatest service enterprise ever created. It's the best way to help poor people rise. And that story has been lost. And that's why I want to build a Hall of Fame called the Hall of Giants, celebrating America's past and present, known and unknown entrepreneurs.
Now, your project is coming along at a time when American capitalism, I think, is under attack. You have a lot of politicians out there questioning whether capitalism is still the right system for us. You have people saying socialism is better, but entrepreneurship in the United States goes hand in hand with our capitalist system. What's your view on that? Why do you think capitalism is falling out of favor, and what do we need to be teaching our young people about the benefits of capitalism and starting businesses?
Yeah, capitalism, rather socialism, is more popular among younger people today than capitalism. And the reason for that, to answer your question, is because they've been indoctrinated that way by the media and by academia, not just in the universities around the country, but even in K through 12 education. It's been vilified with a structured game plan by the political left, often with teachers' unions and others playing a role to discredit the merits and the virtue and the nobility of capitalism and the entrepreneur's role within that. And that's why I'm building the Hall of Giants, along with many other great people that are involved in this. Former Governor Doug Ducey of Arizona is on our board of advisors. Larry Arnn at Hillsdale is on our board of advisors, and others. We're just very grateful for everybody getting behind this, because we need to build an American consensus once again that free enterprise, capitalism, America's founding, and entrepreneurs are all noble, should be respected, and even revered. And those are the stories we're going to tell. We're going to tell the stories of how they make our lives better and solve our great problems.
So the Hall of Giants is going to be a pavilion that's available on the National Mall. When will that be opening? And if someone comes to visit this, what is the experience going to be like?
Yeah, it's a great thing. The Freedom 250 organization has put together America's great state fair, a birthday party, if you will. And so the Washington Monument will be a candle. There'll be pavilions all from that Washington Monument up to the Capitol building. And for those who've been to the National Mall, there's these gravel pathways, and all along those pathways will be these various pavilions. And we're just very grateful to be one of very few outside of the states to be there. So it'll be a very long rectangular building, and people will enter and see our mini version of a hall celebrating and identifying our past and great entrepreneurs such as Henry Ford, Eli Whitney, Steve Jobs, and so many more. And then they'll pass through and go on a little bit of a journey, just like an entrepreneur does. There'll be a lemonade stand. Somewhere north of 40% of every baby boomer has had a lemonade stand, one of the first entrepreneurial experiences. And we want to sort of encourage people to not give up when they're a child and keep building adult versions of lemonade stands. We'll go to a garage where many businesses started, or a basement. Then we'll head on down where you get to make a pitch, your elevator pitch, and go through a little series of experiential scenes that way. And then we'll have presidential entrepreneurs. You might know, Scott, we have a number of presidential entrepreneurs, not just President Trump, who was obviously a great real estate developer and entrepreneur, but George Washington was a whiskey distiller. Of course, Harry Truman was a famed failed haberdasher, and others. And so we'll take them through the journey, and each step of the way show how that journey happens, the risk they take, but in the end, how they succeed by serving other people well. And that's what we really want people to come away with. And I never realized that businesses are successful by serving us well, and they fail when they serve us poorly. And that's part of the story we want to tell.
That voice you're hearing is the founder and CEO of this project called Hall of Giants. His name is John Tillman, and you're going to be able to go through this amazing exhibit as part of the America 250 celebration on the National Mall this summer. John, thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for celebrating capitalism in America. And I should also mention you have a new book out. It's called The Political Vice, How the Radical Left Controls America and the Path to Regaining Our Liberty. It is available now wherever books are sold. That's John Tillman. Thanks for joining us on the show. Let me pass along a listener note before we go to break. This comes from Eileen. She's in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, my home Commonwealth. Eileen is 87 years old. She says there was a point where she just couldn't walk. It had become too difficult. She said, I'm just getting old. That's the way it is. And then she tried Relief Factor. Now Eileen, 87, walking again, dancing around to music. She started with 3 packets a day. Now she's down to 2. This is real improvement. If you're in Eileen's boat, get out of it with Relief Factor. Try the 3-week quick start. 1-800-4RELIEF or go to relieffactor.com. Do what Eileen did. Find out how it feels to be out of pain. When we come back, have you heard people in the media say there's a MAGA civil war over Iran? Well, that's a made-up narrative. We'll discuss the data right after this.
The one thing you can count on here on this show, we tell the truth. You can count on it. It's the Scott Jennings Show.
And it's a show of breaking news today, common sense for the American people. We can report to you that the President of the United States has announced that Kristi Noem is out at the Department of Homeland Security as of March 31st, and she is being replaced by Oklahoma Senator MarkWayne Mullin. He will become acting DHS secretary. He'll be nominated and, of course, will have to be confirmed by the Senate. I have more breaking news on that. U.S. Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania is a member of the Homeland Security Committee. He says, I'm not sure how many fellow Democrats will vote to support our colleague, MarkWayne Mullin, as DHS secretary, but meaning he'll be voting yes. We'll talk more about that later in the show. Another story that is on my mind, if you've tuned into some of my recent CNN appearances, you may have seen that I've been hounded over the idea that the war with Iran is somehow splitting up the Republican Party or the president's coalition. This is standard practice. The president does something. One Republican speaks out against it. All of a sudden, this is presented as a fracture in the Republican Party. This happens over and over again, and it is almost always a hoax. And this latest example is the war with Iran. Here to discuss this, Isaac Shore, senior editor at Mediaite. Isaac, making your inaugural appearance on the Scott Jennings Show, you have a piece called The MAGA Civil War Over Iran is a Made-Up Media Fantasy. Isaac, please take us through what you have seen and heard that caused you to write this insightful piece.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me, Scott. You saw the same thing I saw. Every single major media outlet has been touting this supposed MAGA crack-up. NPR, The Atlantic, The Bulwark, all the usual suspects. And the data just does not back that up at all. CNN had to pull out a supermajority plus of Republicans. It was 77% to 23% approve of the president's action. And the kicker, because how all of these outlets frame it, is that MAGA is turning on Trump. America First is turning on Trump, right? But what CNN found is that MAGA Republicans are actually far more hawkish on Iran than more traditional Republicans. I'm going to read from CNN right now. MAGA Republicans are 30 points more likely than non-MAGA Republicans to say they strongly approve of the decision to take military action, 34 points more likely to say it will reduce the threat Iran poses to the U.S., and nearly 50 points more likely to say they have a great deal of trust in Trump to navigate this situation. So, as you said, it's a complete hoax.
Isaac, here's what I think. I think that there is a constant undercurrent in mainstream media, and it's been going on, frankly, for the last, whenever Donald Trump got elected president the first time, the last decade, the idea that this time we're going to be able to split him from his base. We've got him now. Iran is just the latest. And I've heard this over and over, and then I hear Democrat pundits come on the air and say, we have ample evidence that Republicans are turning against Donald Trump. There is no evidence. Any of us that can read a poll can tell you there's no evidence. And I'm sorry, but Thomas Massie and Marjorie Taylor Greene does not evidence make. They always use a couple of voices to try to stand in for everybody else. But Isaac, the data is clear, and it is always clear. The president, I think, is stronger with his base now than he's ever been, and he's at least as strong as he has ever been. Do you agree?
I completely agree with that. The walls are always closing in, according to the media. And what you're seeing is them really capitalizing on this kind of small industry of, right-wing isolationist content creators who, yes, absolutely, they have audiences that make them a lot of money, because you don't need actually a significant chunk of the American population to make money in the media industry. And so what you have is the mainstream media and left-wing media capitalizing on a few of these voices breaking with the president to say they're representative of the larger country. And as you said, no evidence whatsoever.
That voice you're hearing, Isaac Schur, he is the senior editor at Mediaite, and he has a new piece, which I encourage you to read. Don't take it from me, take it from Isaac. The piece is called "The MAGA Civil War Over Iran is a Made-Up Media Fantasy." I have no doubt you're going to continue to hear people say Republicans are against it, but it is just not true. Isaac, thanks for joining us on the show. Look forward to having you back in the near future. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we have the Lieutenant Governor of Georgia coming by. Burt Jones making his inaugural appearance on the show. He has the president's endorsement for governor and their campaign down there. That's after this on Salem. Stay with us.
He's the author of the best-selling book, A Revolution of Common Sense. Here's Scott Jennings.
It is Thursday, March the 5th. It's been a wild Scott Jennings Show today. Lots of breaking news. I'm currently looking at a screen, and I see the Homeland Security Secretary, the current one, Kristi Noem, speaking at an event, a major cities conference, I believe in Nashville, Tennessee. And as she was taking the stage for that event, the President of the United States issued a statement saying that she will no longer be Homeland Security Secretary, that she will be out of that job as of March the 31st. And he is replacing her with Oklahoma Senator MarkWayne Mullin, friend of the show. We know MarkWayne well. And that is what the president has decided to do. So the breaking news here, we're getting the first cabinet change of the president's new term. Noem is out. MarkWayne Mullin will be in. He'll be first installed as acting DHS secretary. He'll have to go to the Senate and be confirmed, and he's already got at least one yes vote, and that's coming from Senator John Fetterman, who says he will vote to confirm MarkWayne Mullin. All right, let's turn to the great state of Georgia. There are critical races up and down the ticket. In the race for U.S. Senate, Republicans are trying to beat Democrat incumbent Jon Ossoff. He is the only incumbent Democratic senator up for re-election this year in a state won by President Trump in 2024. So this seat is considered a prime target for Republicans and a must-win for Democrats who want a chance of flipping the Senate. A lot of people are paying attention to the Senate race, but there is also a governor's race going on. Brian Kemp is on his way out, term limited, and a big endorsement was landed in this race among the Republicans who are vying to replace Governor Kemp. The endorsement is had by Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, and it comes from President Trump himself. Let's take a listen to cut number 6.
Hello, Georgia. I am thrilled to give my complete and total endorsement to my good friend and your next governor, Burt Jones. He is fantastic. He's done a great job. He's a former co-captain of the University of Georgia, meaning he really knew how to play football, and he helped lead the Bulldogs to their first SEC championship in 20 years. He had an outstanding career in business, and now he is your fantastic lieutenant governor and a true warrior for the people of Georgia. He's been a fantastic lieutenant governor. With your vote, Burt will fight to bring jobs and investment pouring into Georgia on an unprecedented scale. He will cut your taxes, protect Georgia communities from violent crime and all of the problems that ensue. He'll keep men out of women's sports. That's another beauty. He'll defend school choice, and he will always protect your Second Amendment. I have nothing but good to say about Bert. He's an outstanding person, an outstanding man, and he will be a great, great governor. So go out and vote for Bert Jones. You're not going to miss. He will never, ever let you down.
All right, that was the President of the United States endorsing my next guest. The Lieutenant Governor is here from Georgia, Bert Jones. Welcome into the Scott Jennings Show.
Scott, good to be with you. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, glad to see you again. We saw each other a few months ago in Macon, Georgia at a great event there, at a pro-life event, and it was a fun conversation we had that night. So since that moment, you are in the governor's race. There have been a lot of candidates looking at the race. There's a lot of people orbiting the campaign, but you are the only one that has President Trump's endorsement, and I believe qualifications for the race will wrap up tomorrow. Give us an idea of how this race is shaping up with your getting Trump's endorsement and the qualifications and everybody that's looking at it.
Yeah, well, once again, thank you for having me on, Scott, and I greatly appreciate having the president's endorsement. Obviously, it means a lot in a Republican primary. It really means a lot here in Georgia. The president's really popular, and he's just got a great following. I officially qualified today for my candidacy for governor, and really excited about that. But look, President endorsed me because I've been with him since day one, and he and I share the same views on putting America first, putting Georgians first in our case, and that's just fighting for lower taxes, less regulation, public safety, and just the America first agenda. And so, really excited about that. I like our chances of winning in May, which is our primary. But we've got a few folks we got to go through first before we can get there.
You mentioned the issue of taxes, and Lieutenant Governor, you've made eliminating the income tax a key part of your platform here in the governor's race. Florida already does this. How would you do this? How would it need to be done to accomplish this in Georgia, and how would this benefit the state's economy?
Obviously, well, at the end of the day, Scott, we want to give everybody a 5% pay raise. And 4 years of lieutenant governor, we've lowered the state income tax all 4 years. And we're going to continue to do that until we get it to zero. And we're also addressing property taxes this year. We're right now in session right now, Scott, and we have what we call the middle of the session, which is crossover day, where we're capping property taxes at the local level, where they can't raise them more than 3%. Because the one thing that we've been focused on doing is kitchen table issues this year, and that's people's wallets and pocketbooks. That's what people care about. So we're looking at insurance, price of insurance, price of fuel, price of food, taxes, both on property and income, and we're addressing all of those this session, and that's what I'd do as our next governor.
Governor Jones, I've been talking to Republican candidates for various offices across the country, and most of them are telling me that when they're out talking to voters, they're getting an earful right now about AI and data centers and all the issues about this. Is it going to affect my energy bills, water use? I know Georgia has been a popular spot where people are looking to put some AI data centers. I'm just curious, what are you hearing from the voters in Georgia, and sort of what's your policy view on how these AI data centers should be handled moving forward?
Yeah, obviously, yeah, because we have Georgia Power, and we were the first state in probably 70 years that actually had a nuclear plant that was built here in the last decade that has come online. Our grid has gotten a lot of bandwidth to it, quite frankly, Scott. And so therefore we have had a lot of interest from the data center industry. And they're going into a lot of communities. And look, I tell people all the time, and we did this 2 years ago, we cut out whatever subsidies or tax breaks that they were getting at the state level. We tried to do that 2 years ago. It didn't get all the way through, and it's coming back this year. And we're going to do that at the state level because, and it really comes down to the local communities and what they would like to do. And I tell every local community, look, whatever you do, don't leave too much money on the table. Make sure that the folks involved in those industries, because it's huge companies. It's companies like Google, Amazon, Microsoft. These are not mom and pop operations. So I tell them, make sure they bring more to the table than what they take away. and it can benefit your community, because right now, Scott, there's a lot of people talking about getting these data centers, but quite frankly, we don't have the bandwidth to service all the quote unquote ones that are going to be established. But the communities that do want them, I would just tell them not to give away too many tax abatements in doing so, because we're going to get rid of them at the state level as well.
Education is always a big issue in governor's races, and I believe you have legislation that you're working on right now to defend free speech in Georgia classrooms. Tell us a little bit about this bill that you're backing.
Well, it's a bill that it was inspired by Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA, and it allows we're codifying, allowing kids to basically set up clubs that will talk about their Christian beliefs, as well as they have an open forum for political beliefs. So much, the whole movement behind Charlie Kirk is he would go onto campuses and he would take on all questions and all comers, and he was passionate about his faith. He was a masterful historian on issues. He had a command of issues better than anybody I think I've ever seen, and he really opened a lot of eyes to a lot of young people, quite frankly. And there's a lot of young people who are interested in the political process because of what Charlie Kirk did, because of Turning Point USA. So we passed that bill. I appreciate you asking about that. Passed that bill yesterday out of the Senate, and it'll go on to the House. And we'll be the first state to have that in code once it gets all the way through.
Well, I appreciate you bringing up our friend here at Salem, Charlie Kirk. Of course, this is his old time slot on the radio as we do it live. And Charlie was my friend, and we appreciate you honoring his memory that way. Let's talk a little about immigration. Of course, one of the biggest immigration stories that outraged Americans was the tragic murder of Laken Riley, which happened in Georgia. We are now seeing Democrats go so far to the left on immigration. In fact, there was a Democrat member of the House named Angie Craig from Minnesota who wrote an op-ed in the local paper up in Minnesota this week saying that she regretted having voted for the Laken Riley Act. We see Democrats across the country who will not honor ICE detainers. We see Democrats across the country who are letting violent illegal aliens out of jails, and they go out and they murder and commit violent acts against other American citizens. How big of an issue is immigration going to be in your campaign? I assume you're hearing outrage about this out on the campaign trail from conservatives.
Yeah, obviously, that was a tragedy that, we had the anniversary of that tragedy 2 years ago, just I think last week. I remember one of our congressional members, actually my congressman, passed the Laken Riley Act that was the first bill that President Trump signed into law. I had the opportunity to be there in person for that. But it was, we don't have many sanctuary cities in Georgia, but we do have pockets of sanctuary cities. And unfortunately, Athens, Georgia is one where we have a lot of liberals who are elected to local offices at our flagship university town. But it should have never happened. That person who committed that crime that killed that young lady, he was arrested multiple times in New York and other places, and he was allowed to stay in under the Biden administration. He should have never have been in the country. He should have never been in Georgia, and it was because of the weak immigration policies of the Biden administration that he was here. But I can assure you, Scott, under the Trump administration, and if I'm governor, the Trump administration will have complete cooperation with our state agencies as well as local agencies when they have to have ICE come here or any kind of deportation scenarios that take place, because you can't have a country that have a lot of people who come here illegally, and it's unfortunate that we had a lot of bad actors that came here under the Biden administration.
That voice you're hearing on the show today, he is the Lieutenant Governor of Georgia. His name is Burt Jones. He's running for governor. There is a bit of a primary, but there's only one candidate that has President Trump's endorsement in this race, and it is our guest today, Burt Jones. Governor Jones, good luck. You're always welcome back here on the show, and I'm sure we will talk again before the year is out. We're going to take a break. When we come back, more breaking news. Kristi Noem is out at the Department of Homeland Security. We have the details after this.
Straight talk without the bluster. When you positively need the truth, this is where you come. The Scott Jennings Show.
Home stretch of common sense for the American people. Scott Jennings is here on Salem. What a show. What a big day for breaking news. And, of course, the big news is Kristi Noem is out as Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. And Senator MarkWayne Mullin of Oklahoma is in. He'll go in as of March 31st as the acting, and then he'll have to go to the Senate to be confirmed. So that is the breaking news. And here to update us on that and also to talk about the fact that, by the way, in case you've forgotten, the Department of Homeland Security is currently shut down by Democrats, is a veteran of the New York City Police Department, where he served as detective for 15 years. He's now a member of President Trump's Homeland Security Advisory Council. You know him. His name is Bo Dietl. Bo, welcome to the Scott Jennings Show.
Hey, Scott, what a big day. Wow. That's all I got to say.
It is a big day. Well, you just obviously learned about this. Give us your reaction to the change in leadership at Homeland Security.
All I know is I was one of the first ones appointed by the president to be a consultant on the Homeland Security Advisory Council. And I look forward, and I've been working with TSA, I've been working with all the groups, including with Secretary Noem, who I have personally like a lot. And I mean, I'm very shocked about this, but then again, politics are politics. And I think what happened during the hearings was a big catalyst with one of our United States senators there, where it was said that she spent this money and the president knew about it. I think that was the catalyst that was the reason why she's not there any longer. I don't think it's anything about the job responsibility. And again, I'm kind of shocked, but yet, we have to move on. We have midterm elections that we have to win for the president, and basically, I stand fast with that. I mean, the big thing right now, what I'm concerned, a lot of people forget about 9/11. I was there. Why did Homeland Security, why was it formed? It was formed after we got attacked with all the different groups. So they put all the groups together, TSA, FEMA, cybersecurity, Coast Guard, Secret Service, all these things right now. So now these Democrats now don't like what's going on with ICE. They don't like it, so they're trying to react to ICE. ICE is funded, I believe, right through to 2028 with the big, beautiful bill. The only thing that's affecting this now is the safety and security of American citizens out there. We have TSA workers that was laid off a couple of months ago. They're starting to back off. And you know what? Our security, our safety is at stake right now. When you got a guy like Senator Schumer and this other guy from the House of Representatives, both of them from Brooklyn, they should stay in Brooklyn, and Hakeem Jeffries, and now they're playing with safety and security of Americans. Well, what's going on with Iran right now? I was just in the Oval Office with the president last Thursday around 3 p.m., and I gave the president, when he asked me my advice about Iran, I gave him my advice. I said, Mr. President, and my old partner, Steve Witkoff, was the one that was negotiating, and then he came out with all this information, Steve, about them, these fools telling them, we could have in about a week, we could have like 9 or 10 nuclear warheads or atomic bombs. And that's when I think Steve Witkoff told the president, we got to move. So I told the president, you know what? I think we should go in tomorrow. This is on Thursday. I said, you ever get in a fight, Mr. President? You punch a guy in the face. When you got him down, we got to crush him. Because if they get atomic weapons, they will use them against us and our allies. Well, that was my opinion. I'm not saying that I caused the Iranian attack, but I did tell my dear friend, President Trump, I think we should go in there tomorrow. And they just happened to go in there the next day, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that voice you're hearing on the Scott Jennings Show today is the legendary New York Police Department detective, Bo Dietl. You've no doubt seen Bo on television over the years and in the media. He's a close friend of President Trump, and he was appointed to serve on the Homeland Security Advisory Council. Bo, I know that you're giving some advice to the administration right now about how to deal with the Homeland Security shutdown. I know you're giving them some advice and your own observations about some of the immigration issues that we've seen going on out there. I just wanted to say thank you for your service. I know this isn't a paid job. It's an advisory council, but you're offering up some public service to the American people. I do have to go. We have a hard out at the end of the hour here, but I just wanted to say thanks for coming on the show. I'd love to have you back for a longer segment in the very near future. on a day when we don't have quite so much breaking news. That was Bo Dietl, member of the Trump Homeland Security Advisory Council, reacting to the news that Kristi Noem is out as Secretary of Homeland Security and MarkWayne Mullin is in. That's going to wrap it up for us today. I'm sure we'll have more breaking news tomorrow. Live from Kansas City today, and we're back in Palm Beach tomorrow. It's Common Sense for the American people. I'm Scott Jennings. Thanks for listening, and stay here with Salem.
Common sense for the American people. This is the Scott Jennings Show.